I've got a lot of SD cards. Here's a No Name from Amazon. This quit. Here is a SanDisk. And this is the one that we're going to be talking about here. This is 128 gigabyte. I had it in this Pi right here, and it got corrupted. And so there's a pattern here, and it isn't always just with Raspberry Pis. A lot of them are just getting corrupted from overuse. And so, in like these cheap ones were in like a dash cam. But like I said, even with the SanDisk, I've had problems with them. So I'm going to try a different approach, and I'm going to boot from a USB drive on this Pi and see if I can, repair the bad sectors in this later. But I've just kind of had it with SD cards, and they're not cheap. So let's get into it. All right, here's my Raspberry Pi 4, and what I want to do is I want to create a bootable disk drive here on this Lexar so that I can boot from this instead of the SD card. I recently had a problem with the SD card, and it caused this thing to go in a continuous loop, and I cannot believe that I'm actually working on the Pi at all because I got a corrupted file. So we'll go ahead and we're going to pop this in. All right, we can open it in File Manager. What this is a Ubuntu boot disk, and so I'm just going to overwrite it. Now I'm going to use the Raspberry Pi Imager. All right, let's see if we have enough space on here. I've got a Pi 4. I'm going to use the 64-bit. And then we're going to go on to the Ubuntu and see if we can get this to work. And then we're going to erase all data on the flash drive. Let's see if there's enough room. All right, put my admin password, and hopefully that's enough. So I'll pause the video and see if we have enough space. Well, it looks like it's about done, and it's going to fit on there. Okay, then we'll verify, and we'll come back when that's done. All right, the verification is done, and we can remove the car from reader. I'm actually not going to do that. Now, what we want to do is we want to boot from that USB drive. So let's type in sudo raspi-config. This opens up the config file. Note that I'm on a Raspberry Pi 4. So we're going to arrow down to the advanced options and press return, and then to boot order. Now currently it's set to boot from the SD card, but what we want to do is we want to change it to boot from the USB and then the SD card. And so we're going to choose that one. And then now we have the boot device is now set. And then we're going to arrow down and exit out of here. I would say no, we're not going to reboot now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to power off the Pi, and we're going to shut it down. Now that the Pi is off, I'm going to unplug the power, and then I'm going to remove the SD card. All right, and we've got this plugged in with the, this should boot from that, so let's plug this in. Okay, it's attempting to boot up. All right, now I've gone through the menus for the initial setup, and now they're asking to update the software, so we're going to go ahead and do that. All right, the system is all done, so we'll just say OK, and we should be ready to go. All right, the system is complete, and we now have a bootable Raspberry Pi image here on the USB drive. So let's check to see how much room we have left. We've got 7 gig free. That's not too bad. Just want to check one thing. There we go, everything's up to date. Perfect. So that's how you do it. You can do this with virtually any USB drive that has enough space for the OS, and you can potentially stop using the SD cards if you want to.